Before the M1 Garand, war was fought one trigger pull at a time. Every shot meant a pause, a bolt lifted, a cartridge ejected, another round slammed home. The soldier's rhythm was mechanical, deliberate, and deadly slow. From the muddy trenches of World War I to the frozen fields of Russia, armies across the world trusted the bolt-action rifle. The British Lee Enfield, the German Carabiner 98K, the American Springfield 1903. They were accurate, powerful, and reliable, but in a modern war of tanks, planes, and lightning-fast assaults, that pause between shots became a fatal weakness. By the time World War II began, the battlefield had changed, but the rifles hadn't. While most of Europe still relied on 19th century technology, one quiet engineer in Massachusetts was already building the weapon that would change the face of infantry combat forever.
In the 1930s, armies marched with rifles that hadn't truly evolved since the Great War. Each nation was rearming, but few dared to question the rhythm of the bolt. Commanders believed precision and discipline were worth more than speed. The German Kar 98K, flawless craftsmanship, deadly accuracy. The British Lee Enfield, a soldier's workhorse, and the American Springfield M1903, sharp, elegant, but slow. Every trigger pull demanded a second of vulnerability, a second to reload, to aim again while the enemy advanced. In an era of tanks roaring across fields and aircraft screaming overhead, a soldier still fought with the muscle memory of the last war. The machine of war was advancing faster than the men who carried it. America's military knew it, but most thought there was no solution. No army on Earth had ever fielded a semi-automatic rifle for every soldier. It was unthinkable, too complex, too costly, too radical. But one man refused to believe that. A quiet inventor who saw the battlefield not as it was, but as it could be.
He wasn't a general or a soldier. He was a machinist, a Canadian-born inventor who loved precision more than glory. His name was Jean Cantius Garand, though the Army would call him John. In the quiet halls of the Springfield Armory, Garand worked not with bullets, but with blueprints. He believed a rifle could do what no army had dared, fire each round automatically, powered by its own recoil and gas. To most officers, it sounded like fantasy. Too heavy, too delicate, too expensive. But Garand didn't argue, he built. Piece by piece, he crafted a weapon that married mechanics with simplicity, a gas-operated system that cycled itself, smooth, reliable, unstoppable. 8 rounds in a clip, no bolt to lift, no pause between shots. Garand's test rifles began to whisper a new rhythm, rapid, steady, deadly efficient. Each trigger pull was a promise of what the future of war could sound like. And soon the Army would listen.
For decades, inventors had dreamed of a rifle that could load itself, a weapon that fired with the speed of a machine gun but the precision of a marksman's shot. It was the holy grail of infantry warfare, a self-loading rifle that could turn every soldier into a storm of fire. But the dream was haunted by failure. Early designs jammed, overheated, or shattered under battlefield grit. The mechanisms were too delicate, the metals too weak, the recoil too wild. The United States Army had seen dozens of prototypes come and go. Each one promised revolution. Each one broke under pressure. But John Garand's rifle was different. It was light enough to carry, tough enough to endure, and simple enough for any farm boy turned soldier to master. When the first rounds fired clean, one after another, the officers at Springfield Armory didn't just see a rifle. They saw the future of warfare taking shape before their eyes. The self-loading dream was no longer a fantasy. It was ready to go to war.
The great stone halls of the Springfield Armory echoed with the sound of destiny. Rifles firing, hammers striking, engineers holding their breath. By the late 1930s, America's best minds had gathered to decide one question: which rifle would carry the nation into the next war? Garand's design faced fierce competition. There was the Pedersen rifle, clever, complex, but fragile. And there were those who still clung to the old bolt-action Springfield, insisting that reliability mattered more than innovation. When the testing began, the M1 spoke for itself. Bang, bang, bang. 8 shots in seconds, smooth, controlled, perfect ejection. While others jammed, Garand's rifle kept firing. Day after day in mud, sand, and freezing rain, the M1 refused to quit. It was a machine built for the soldier, not the laboratory. The Army's observers took notes, and even the skeptics began to nod in silence. By the end of the trials, the verdict was clear. America had found its rifle, and the rest of the world had no idea what was coming.
It wasn't an easy decision. The world was arming fast, Germany rearming, Japan expanding, and the US still had a Depression-era budget and a peacetime mindset. Some generals said the M1 was too risky, too new, too expensive. A semi-automatic rifle for every soldier? No one had ever done it before. But others saw what it meant. A weapon that could fire as fast as a man could pull the trigger. A force multiplier in the hands of a trained infantryman. The gamble was enormous. Factories had to be retooled, ammunition redesigned, the entire supply chain reinvented around a new way of fighting. Still, America pressed forward. Garand's rifle rolled off the lines at Springfield Armory, each one a symbol of faith in engineering and in the soldier who would carry it. When the gamble finally reached the battlefield, the result was clear. The M1 wasn't just a rifle, it was America's advantage.
It began not in a massive factory or military lab, but on the workbench of a quiet Canadian-born engineer named John Cancius Garand. In the 1920s, the U.S. Army was searching for something revolutionary. A rifle that could fire faster than any bolt action on Earth, yet stay reliable in mud, rain, and the chaos of battle. Garand's designs were unlike anything the Army had seen. He worked at the Springfield Armory, surrounded by machines that had built rifles since the Civil War. And there, he reshaped the future of warfare. Through years of trials, failures, and redesigns, he perfected a self-loading, gas-operated rifle, a weapon that used the energy of each shot to load the next. By 1936, after countless tests and skepticism from traditionalists, the U.S. Army officially adopted it, the M1 Garand, the first standard-issue semi-automatic rifle in the world. It was elegant, rugged, and deadly efficient, a rifle born from patience, precision, and one man's belief that innovation could win wars before they even began.
8 cartridges, 1 clip, a rhythm that changed the battlefield. The M1's N-block clip held 8.3006 rounds. Not a parade of endless ammunition, but the perfect balance of weight, rate of fire, and reliability. Load, shoulder, squeeze, and the Garand answered with a steady stream of shots that would have taken a bolt-action rifle twice as long to deliver. 8 fast rounds, a snap as the clip ejected with its dry metallic ping,
and the rifle was ready again. That 8 rewrote tactics. A single rifleman could put down suppressing fire long enough for comrades to close and clear a position. Skirmishes that once favored the patient marksman now rewarded speed and volume without losing accuracy at combat ranges. Soldiers loved it for the same reason their commanders respected it: simplicity. No complicated feeding, no fiddly magazines. A soldier could strip a clip in a heartbeat and keep fighting. And when mud, snow, or sweat tried to stop a weapon, the Garand kept working, 8 shots at a time. On battlefields from North Africa to Normandy, from hedgerow to ruined city street, those 8 rounds were often the difference between holding a foxhole and losing it.
To most soldiers of World War II, reloading was a pause, a break in the rhythm of survival. But for the Americans carrying the M1 Garand, that pause nearly vanished. Each pull of the trigger brought a new round forward automatically, a smooth mechanical heartbeat powered by gas pressure and precision engineering. No bolt to lift, no chamber to work, just aim, fire, and the rifle did the rest. It was almost magic to those who first saw it. German infantrymen, trained to cycle their Mauser bolts with discipline and speed, found themselves outmatched by a rifle that refused to slow down. The Garand turned every U.S. infantryman into a semi-automatic storm of firepower. When a squad of M1s opened up together, it sounded like a machine gun line, steady, fast, and unrelenting. In the chaos of combat, that difference mattered. Moments where hesitation meant death, gone. The M1 flowed as naturally as breathing. A soldier could focus on the fight, not the mechanics of his weapon. It wasn't just a rifle that fired fast. It was a rifle that thought ahead.
General George S. Patton was not a man given to easy praise. He demanded perfection from his men, his tanks, his tactics. But when he spoke about the M1 Garand, his words became legend. In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised. Coming from Patton, that wasn't flattery, it was fact. He saw what few others truly understood at first, that a rifle, not a tank or plane, could redefine modern warfare. The Garand gave American infantry something no other army had: a technical edge in every firefight. It was reliable in mud, in rain, in frozen Europe and the Pacific jungle alike. It hit hard, cycled fast, and almost never jammed. While other nations still relied on century-old bolt designs, the U.S. had armed millions with the future. To Patton, that meant power, not in factories or strategy rooms, but in the hands of the common soldier. Every trigger pull echoed the might of American engineering, and every Garand in the field proved his words true.
At first, the German High Command dismissed the American rifle with arrogance. They believed no nation could mass-produce a semi-automatic weapon for every soldier, not without sacrificing reliability. To them, it was an impractical fantasy. The German army prided itself on the Mauser, precise, dependable, tested through decades of war. Their philosophy was simple: one perfect shot was better than many. So when reports first came in of American troops firing rapidly without working a bolt, German officers laughed it off. Propaganda, they called it. They believed American soldiers were wasting ammunition, undisciplined, inexperienced, and dependent on technology. But that laughter didn't last long. On the battlefields of North Africa and Sicily, they began to hear a strange new rhythm, a steady, thunderous cadence that no bolt-action rifle could match. It was the sound of the M1 Garand, and for the first time, the German command realized This was not a gimmick. It was an advantage, one that would cost them dearly. Before the war, even within the U.S. Army, the M1 Garand had its critics. Many officers believed the rifle was too delicate for the mud, sand, and chaos of real combat. They called it too complicated, too fragile, a machine that would jam, seize, or fail long before it could prove its worth. Old-school commanders swore by their bolt actions, rifles that had fired in the trenches of the Great War and never let them down. They didn't trust a weapon that loaded itself. But John Garand's design was different. He had built the M1 to endure the unthinkable, from frozen foxholes to blistering deserts. In early field tests, soldiers buried it in mud, froze it in ice, even dropped it from trucks. And each time, the rifle fired. Clean, smooth, unstoppable. When the first units carried it into battle, the skeptics went silent. They saw a rifle that could survive what men barely could. Soon, the phrase "too fragile" disappeared from the reports, replaced by one word whispered with pride: unbreakable.
The M1 Garand's true trial by fire came under the blazing sun of North Africa. Sandstorms, heat, and dust, the enemies of every machine, tore through American weapons. Bolt actions jammed, lubricants baked off, barrels overheated, but the M1 kept firing. In the hands of the first U.S. troops to face Rommel's Africa Corps, it proved itself not in theory, but in survival. Soldiers found they could fire twice as fast, reload twice as quick, and keep their heads up when seconds meant life or death. German troops were stunned. Their Mauser rifles could only manage one shot for every two from the Garand. In desert duels where speed ruled, that difference was everything. Reports from the front poured back. The rifle works even in hell. From the dunes of Tunisia to the rocky hills of Kasserine, the M1 Garand became more than a weapon. It was a promise that American engineering could thrive where others failed.
When the M1 Garand crossed the Atlantic, it entered a world of mud, cold, and chaos. The hedgerows of France and the frozen forests of Belgium became its proving grounds. From D-Day's beaches to the push toward the Rhine, the rifle was everywhere, in the hands of young men fighting house to house, field to field, inch by inch. German soldiers, armed with their trusted Kar 98K bolt actions, soon realized they were outgunned. In ambushes and sudden firefights, Americans could fire 8 shots before a German could reload once. It wasn't just firepower, it was dominance. Reports from captured officers spoke with disbelief. The Americans shoot like machines, their rifles never stop. Even in the bitter cold of the Ardennes, when weapons froze and men trembled, the M1 Garand kept working, firing, ejecting, loading, as if refusing to surrender. This was no laboratory weapon anymore. It was a soldier's lifeline, the rifle that carried America from Normandy to victory.
It was a sound unlike any other in the war. Sharp, metallic, unmistakable. When the M1 Garand fired its last round, the empty clip flew out with a crisp bing. To American soldiers, it meant one thing: reload fast and get back in the fight. To German troops, that sound became legend, the supposed signal that an American rifle was empty. But the truth was more complicated. In the chaos of battle, with machine guns, mortars, and shouting all around, that tiny ping was rarely heard beyond a few feet. Still, it became part of the weapon's myth. Soldiers told stories of using it as a trick, tossing an empty clip on a rock to lure enemies out, only to greet them with 8 more rounds of steel. The ping wasn't just a sound, it was the heartbeat of the battlefield. It echoed through Europe and across the Pacific, marking every fight, every reload, every victory bought with courage and iron. The M1 Garand didn't just fire bullets, it fired belief, and the enemy could hear it ring.
For decades, the bolt-action rifle ruled the battlefield. Simple, strong, reliable, but slow. Each shot demanded a rhythm. Fire, lift, pull, push, aim again. The German Mauser, the British Lee Enfield, the Soviet Mosin Nagant, they all fought wars with that same mechanical heartbeat. One shot, one motion, 1 second lost. Then came the M1 Garand. 8 rounds, gas-operated, self-loading. A rifle that fired as fast as a soldier could pull the trigger. In combat, the difference was everything. American riflemen laid down twice the firepower of their enemies. German soldiers found themselves outshot, outpaced, overwhelmed. A squad of U.S. infantry with Garands could deliver the volume of an entire German platoon, armed with Mausers. For the first time, the balance of firepower shifted, not because of numbers, but because of design. The bolt-action rifle was a masterpiece of the past. The M1 Garand was a weapon of the future, and that future had already arrived.
Before the M1 Garand, infantry tactics were built around patience and precision. Cover, aim, fire once, wait for the order. It was a slow war, fought one trigger pull at a time. But the Garand rewrote that doctrine. Suddenly, every American soldier carried the firepower of a light machine gun. Offense became faster, defenses collapsed quicker, and the battlefield began to move in ways it never had before. Commanders noticed it first in North Africa, squads advancing under their own fire, keeping pressure constant without waiting for support. In Europe, it became a storm, rapid fire sweeping through hedgerows, the sound of 8-round clips ringing like thunder across the fields. German soldiers described it with disbelief. The Americans fire without stopping. The M1 Garand didn't just give soldiers more bullets, it gave them confidence, momentum, and initiative. It was no longer about who fired first. It was about who could keep firing. And in that race, the Garand made sure America never fell behind.
Before the M1 Garand, a foxhole was a place to hide, a hole in the ground where a soldier waited out the storm. With bolt-action rifles, every shot was a risk, every reload a pause. But with the Garand, the foxhole became a fortress. 8 rounds at the pull of a trigger, a wall of fire that could stop a charge, break an ambush, or hold a line long enough for help to arrive. Across Europe and the Pacific, GIs learned that their rifle was more than a weapon, it was survival itself. In Italy's rocky hills, it cracked through the fog. In the Ardennes, it fired through snow and ice. On Pacific Islands, it spat fire through mud, rain, and jungle. A single squad dug in with Garands could rain down more fire than entire companies had just years before. Every foxhole, every trench, every crater became a miniature stronghold because every man in it carried America's secret: automatic precision, reliability, and power. The M1 Garand didn't just arm soldiers, it turned every patch of dirt into a fortress, and every soldier into a defender who could strike back.
At first, German troops didn't believe what they were seeing. They picked up the strange, heavy rifle from fallen American soldiers and realized this wasn't another bolt-action relic. It was a machine of precision, a weapon that loaded itself, a rifle that spat 8 rounds in seconds and never jammed. Many were stunned. They had been told American soldiers were poorly trained, that their weapons were cheap and clumsy. But in their hands, the captured M1 Garand told a different story. German engineers examined it carefully. The craftsmanship was undeniable, a gas-operated system years ahead of its time, a balance of power and reliability no one in Europe had achieved. Some officers even ordered their men to use captured Garands in combat. One report from the Eastern Front called it a superb rifle, too good for mass production, yet somehow they managed it. The propaganda that mocked the M1 quietly vanished, because the truth couldn't be hidden. The Americans had built something revolutionary. In the words of one captured German soldier, "We thought our rifles were the best, until we fired theirs."
As the war dragged on, strange reports began to appear in Wehrmacht intelligence files. Frontline commanders were confused, even alarmed, by the sheer rate of fire coming from American infantry. At first, they assumed every U.S. squad carried extra machine guns. But soon, they realized the truth. Every soldier was firing like one. German officers reported, "The Americans possess a self-loading rifle of remarkable effectiveness." Those words carried both respect and fear. The M1 Garand had shattered expectations of what infantry could do. In firefights across North Africa, Italy, and France, German troops found themselves outgunned before they could even react. Some reports called it unfair. Others urged the development of similar weapons, a desperate plea for innovation in a war already slipping away. But the Wehrmacht couldn't match the U.S. advantage. The M1 wasn't just a weapon, it was an entire industrial triumph, built by a nation that could arm millions with cutting-edge technology. By the time High Command truly understood what they were facing, the tide had already turned. The reports ended not with strategy, but with disbelief. The Americans fight with rifles that do not stop firing.
By 1943, the truth had spread through German command. The American M1 Garand wasn't just another rifle. It was a revolution in infantry warfare. The Wehrmacht had underestimated it, mocking it as too complex, too fragile. But now, they were desperate to understand it and to build one of their own. Captured Garands were rushed to testing grounds and armories. German engineers disassembled them piece by piece, trying to unlock the secret of its flawless semi-automatic action. Designers at Walter and Mauser scrambled to respond. Projects like the Gewehr 41 and later the Gewehr 43 were born out of this panic, attempts to match American firepower. But none of them could compare. The Garand's simplicity was deceptive. Its gas system, balance, and reliability were years ahead of their time. German rifles jammed in the mud, overheated or failed in the cold, while the M1 kept firing through it all. The race was already lost. The Germans could imitate the shape, but not the spirit, because the real secret of the Garand wasn't just engineering. It was production. A weapon that could be built by the millions by a nation that had turned its factories into forges of freedom.
The German answer to the M1 Garand finally arrived in 1943, a rifle born out of urgency, not innovation. The Gewehr 43, or G43, was Germany's attempt to match America's semi-automatic firepower. It borrowed ideas directly from captured Garands, but it was rushed, overcomplicated, and plagued with flaws. On paper, it looked promising. 10 rounds, semi-automatic, accurate at long range. But in the field, it told a harsher truth. The G43 was heavy, unreliable in dirt or cold, and prone to jamming after just a few magazines. Its delicate gas system demanded constant cleaning, a luxury few soldiers had in the chaos of war. German infantrymen often preferred their old Kar 98K bolt actions because at least those would always fire. Still, the G43 was a glimpse of what could have been, a rifle born too late in a nation stretched too thin, trying to chase a design it once mocked. While the Garand rolled off assembly lines by the millions, Germany could only produce a fraction of that number. The G43 wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol of desperation, the echo of a race already lost to America's engineers.
By 1944, the gap between American and German small arms was undeniable. The Wehrmacht had tried everything. The Gewehr 41, the Gewehr 43, even experimental prototypes. But nothing could rival the M1 Garand's balance of speed, power, and reliability. The problem wasn't just design, it was production. America could build rifles faster than Germany could design them. Factories in Massachusetts and Illinois produce M1s by the thousands every week, while German plants, bombed and short on materials, could barely keep their old rifles in service. The G43s that did reach the front often arrived with defects, cracked stocks, or unreliable gas systems. Soldiers called them the rifles that jammed when needed most. Meanwhile, American troops marched across Europe, each man armed with a semi-automatic that simply worked in snow, sand, or mud. The Germans once laughed at the M1. Now they feared it, because every firefight proved the same truth. Technology, mass production, and innovation had combined into a weapon Germany could no longer match. In the end, the failure to compete wasn't just about rifles. It was about a war Germany couldn't outbuild, a machine it couldn't outthink, and a soldier it could no longer outgun.
When the Allies stormed the beaches of Normandy, the world witnessed not just the largest invasion in history, but a storm of fire and steel unlike anything before. From the cliffs above, German artillery roared. From the sea below, Allied battleships answered with thunder. Every inch of sand at Omaha, Utah, Juneau, and Gold was caught between two worlds colliding. The air was thick with smoke, tracer fire, and the cries of men pushing through chaos to reclaim Europe. Shells turned the beaches into boiling craters, and towns like Caen, St. Lo, and Cherbourg became infernos of rubble and flame. The M1 Garand barked through the haze, its 8-round rhythm echoing through hedgerows and villages as American troops advanced yard by yard. Even the skies burned. P-47 Thunderbolts and Typhoons screamed overhead, turning German armor into twisted wreckage. Fields became graveyards of metal and men. Normandy was not just a battle, it was a firestorm that melted the illusion of German invincibility. And from those burning coasts, the march toward Berlin had truly begun.
It wasn't always the roar of tanks or the crash of artillery that marked the turning of the war. Sometimes, victory had its own rhythm, a steady, metallic ping that echoed across battlefields. Every time an American soldier fired his M1 Garand, 8 shots tore through the air, fast, precise, relentless. Then came that unmistakable sound, the clip ejecting with a sharp ping,
followed by the swift hands of a trained rifleman ready to load again. To the enemy, that sound was strange, alien even. To the Americans, it was a promise that technology, discipline, and firepower were on their side. Across Europe and the Pacific, the same sound carried through forests, deserts, and ruins. It was the music of modern war, a signal that the United States had built not just a weapon, but an advantage that would rewrite the rules of battle. And when the smoke cleared, that ping, once just the sound of a spent clip, became the echo of victory itself.
The winter of 1944 was no ordinary cold. It was the kind that froze rivers, stiffened lungs, and turned rifles into blocks of ice. In the forests of the Ardennes, the snow came down heavy, burying foxholes, silencing boots, and testing every machine man had made for war. The German rifles, precise but delicate, began to jam as the oil froze in their bolts. But the American M1 Garand, built for reliability, tested in mud and heat, kept firing. Soldiers rubbed frost from their sights, breathed warmth into their gloves, and pulled the trigger again and again. The Garand's semi-automatic action spat back snow, its steel body unfazed by the cold. In those frozen forests, where men fought hunger, exhaustion, and frostbite, a dependable rifle wasn't just a weapon, it was survival. And as the Battle of the Bulge raged on, one fact became clear. The M1 didn't just outshoot the enemy, it outlasted the winter itself.
From the scorching sands of Africa to the frozen hell of the Ardennes, one rifle marched with the American soldier and never gave up. The M1 Garand wasn't just another weapon. It was a promise, a piece of machinery that refused to fail when everything else did. Through dust storms, blizzards, and rain, it fired. When mud clogged the trenches and frost locked the barrels, it fired. Its simple gas system and rugged design made it nearly unstoppable. It could hit fast, reload faster, and keep going long after others had jammed or cracked. Men trusted it like they trusted their brothers. It became the heartbeat of the infantry, a rhythm of 8-round pings that echoed through Europe and the Pacific alike. By war's end, even its enemies admitted it. The Garand wasn't just a rifle. It was endurance made of steel.
While soldiers fought in mud and blood, another army, unseen and relentless, kept them alive. From Detroit to Pittsburgh, from the shipyards of California to the fields of Kansas, factories thundered day and night. Every tank, every shell, every rifle, and every ration that reached the front began in these roaring halls of steel and sweat. Women tightened bolts that held planes together. Men forged tank armor glowing red with heat. Farmers sent wheat that became bread for bombers. And railroads pulsed like arteries, pumping life straight to the front lines. The soldiers had courage, but it was the workers who gave them strength. Together they created something no enemy could match, a war machine that never went hungry. The battlefield might have been in Europe, but victory was born in the factories of America.
It wasn't just a rifle. It was a symbol of a nation's strength and the faith that innovation could win wars. The M1 Garand didn't just fire faster. It changed how soldiers fought, how squads advanced, and how America thought about war itself. From the beaches of Normandy to the frozen forests of Bastogne, it stood firm, reliable when mud froze and metal screamed.
8 rounds of defiance. 8 rounds that meant the difference between survival and silence. Every American soldier carried it with pride, not just as a tool, but as a piece of home forged in steel. For those who wielded it, the M1 wasn't just a weapon, it was a companion through hell. When the war ended, its echo didn't fade. It became the sound of a generation that refused to surrender.
In a quiet workshop at Springfield Armory, John Garand's hands shaped history. What began as a single rifle on his bench became the standard for modern firepower. The M1's success echoed far beyond America. Its design inspired nations. Britain studied it, Germany tried to match it, and after the war, even the Soviets took notes. From the ashes of Europe to the hills of Korea, the Garand kept firing, a bridge between the bolt-action past and the automatic future. Its descendants carried its soul. The M14, the M16, even rifles half a world away, owed something to Garand's genius. But it wasn't just engineering that lived on. It was the idea that precision, reliability, and speed could defend freedom better than numbers alone. Decades later, collectors still polish its wood, veterans still remember its weight, and soldiers still call it what General Patton once did, the greatest battle implement ever devised. From Garand's bench to battlefields worldwide, one man's invention became a legacy, and the rifle that helped free the world never truly stopped firing.